Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Let's get after it.
Apparently, OpenAI thought that we needed ChatGPT more than we needed our privacy. OpenAI signed a deal with the Pentagon. OpenAI signed a deal with the Department of War. And people are nervous. But get this, they're trying to tell people that they signed that deal with the Department of War, with the Pentagon, for military use only. But Claude AI has been feuding with the Pentagon because the Pentagon's Department of War wants to use Claude for mad domestic surveillance. So what does that have to do with OpenAI? Well, just like I said, OpenAI just signed that deal with the Pentagon. But privacy means everything to American people. And OpenAI, ChatGPT is falling right before their eyes. OpenAI users have been uninstalling OpenAI and ChatGPT ever since they got the news. There was a 295% spike, and that was all of the people that uninstalled. So basically, we know the AI app that we need to be with. We definitely need to be with Claude AI because Claude AI didn't take the bait. We already know that recently there's been a lot of debates inside the tech world about artificial intelligence being used for things like surveillance and warfare. You have some AI companies saying that they don't want their technology used for those purposes, and then you have the other one. Those ones are working with the government. You gotta think about how powerful AI is already. It can analyze conversation, images, data, patterns, faster than any human could. And imagine that technology connected to government databases, surveillance systems, or military infrastructure. You do the math. Because history shows that once a powerful tool exists, governments and corporations find a way to use it. It's about power. And like I said, OpenAI took the bait.
What's really frustrating is knowing that OpenAI is heavily moderated. That's the AI they decide to use for all of this government integration. You would think that if the government was going to choose an AI to go with, they would go for the one that seemingly has the most correct information when asked questions, not one that answers questions based off of a bias. But considering the government's the one who initially started pushing all of this ideology, it shouldn't be really that surprising. But there's your heads up. If you're still using OpenAI, if you're still on ChatGPT, you may want to start looking at other platforms if you feel that you must use some sort of AI.
No internet, no cell phones, no TV, no streaming. For everyone on the entire Earth, that's the Kessler syndrome. Yeah, Kessler syndrome. Let me explain it to you. Kessler syndrome is a theory where there are so many satellites orbiting the Earth that they end up colliding, crashing into each other, causing a chain reaction. And that chain reaction shuts everything down that needs a satellite. Like cell phones, like the internet, like TV, like streaming, and other stuff. Now the satellites rotating around the Earth, there used to be just a few. See over there, top left? And then they started gaining as more and more got built. Like right above me. And now, that's where we are. Right there. But soon, very soon in the future, that could be what the satellites around Earth look like. Yeah. So many that the aliens can't even get to Earth anymore. They might have to send drones instead. And with all those satellites around the Earth doing their spinity-boo, the Kessler syndrome is a definite possibility. So if someday everything goes down, just remember, that Kessler, he predicted it.
I think this is making a lot of assumptions based off of taking what the government tells us to be true at face value. Clearly there are some satellites floating overhead, but they're obviously being sent up with balloons. They don't function the way that we're being told they function. I'm sure that everything that's been placed up there has its own specific varied height that it has to be off the ground in order to avoid a situation like this. And that last image well, actually all of those images, because I don't believe that we're living on a spinning globe, but that last image showing that there's so much debris in our outer atmosphere that nothing would be able to get through it. I think before we reach that point, if humanity were allowed to continue on without the apocalypse happening. Before it would get to that point, we would probably replace these satellites with some other form of technology, or create satellites that were so advanced that we wouldn't need as many of them floating around overhead. But this is a pretty interesting idea. It would certainly be a problem if things worked the way we're told they work.
Something is going on in the air in Argentina and Mexico, because out of nowhere, this group of young children call themselves the Therians. They're coming out and saying that they are part dog. They're not called furries. The furries are people who identify as dogs. But they're actually saying that they are part dog, and now they are living their life like this, y'all. Look at this. They would all meet up after school and they would do these challenges and these obstacles and stuff. Look at this kid eating snacks out of the hand of a man. Bro, what is going on over here?
En pocas palabras, es una persona que se identifica como un animal de forma involuntaria y a nivel parcial. No es total, nunca es total. ¿Cómo te
Look at the dog tearing her up, saying, nah, you're not no dog. Look at this. There's a lot going on in Argentina that you guys are not aware of, y'all. Like, the Therians have taken over the streets. Look at this. They are literally everywhere. What is happening? Man, I told y'all, there's something in the air.
Soy una persona normal, un humano funcional, vivo mi vida como un humano normal, simplemente tengo esos momentos particulares en los que soy perro.
So she says she has these moments where she feels like she's a
No puedo
dog.
explicarlo porque, o sea,
She don't know how to explain
vivo mi
it.
vida como un humano normal. Simplemente tengo momentos en los que soy un perro.
Bro, what's going on in the air?
Como Argentina dentro de todo viene siendo un país bastante libre, digamos, los Therians empezaron a salir a los parques, todo.
They're going to the park and having these meetings? What is this?
¿Qué es esto? Quiero saber qué está pasando acá, quiero entenderlo. Se emocionaron más para salir porque dijeron, wow, la gente
Look
está
at
dando
this.
reconocimiento.
They're battling and they're fighting.
Por estas identidades.
Y'all, my favorite is when the dogs start attacking. Like, what the? So people aren't just saying that they're dogs and cats, but people are saying they're also lizards as well too. Look at this giant, what's it called, iguana in Mexico. Look at this, bro. What is the world going to? You gotta admit, y'all, this is over, bro. That was pretty cool, but this is over. I've already explained there's a huge shift in consciousness happening, and it's not happening to everyone on the planet. Some people are actually reverting back to the animalistic ways, y'all. But did y'all see this, man? The shift is here. I've been telling y'all. Let's get it. Peace in.
This is absolutely heartbreaking. Everyone just stop and think for a minute about the state of humanity as it is right now. We've known for so long that the goal of the elites is to dumb down society so that we're not capable of uniting and rising up against them. Like, I feel like that's been common knowledge now for decades. I've been told that my entire life, and I'm 43 years old. How are this many people drinking the Kool-Aid? It looks like they've pulled it off. Large swaths of the population have become so dumbed down that they don't even know what species they are. It is just beyond sad to see this.
This guy just created a new Mandela effect, or he tapped into an alternate universe. Either way, the story is going to blow your mind. So this is Chris, and back in 2014, he made this commercial and entered it into $1 million Doritos Super Bowl commercial contest. And as he describes it, he was pretty sure that he was going to win. He felt like he had the winning commercial, but he didn't. And almost no one saw this commercial. He also uploaded it to YouTube. It barely got any views. And this video has pretty much spent the past 10 years in obscurity. Or has it? Because the next year, this Doritos commercial airs When Pigs Fly. Basically the same premise. That's not the weird part. Chris, who shares a lot of mystical and spirituality and philosophy content on TikTok and Instagram, made a video last week sharing this commercial and sharing his story about how he was so sure that it was going to win. And he just wanted to share it with his audience. And that's when all hell broke loose. He got thousands of comments, people saying that they saw this commercial during the Super Bowl. And not just a few, but thousands of people. There are people who say they discussed this commercial with friends and family members. There are people who say they were sick of this commercial because it played on repeat over and over. I myself remember this commercial. I used to study ads, and I remember this one so well because I watched the Super Bowl for the ads, and I remember seeing this commercial and rolling my eyes. Okay, sorry, Chris. I rolled my eyes when I saw this commercial, and I did see it during the Super Bowl. So I actually know Chris in real life. He's one of the most genuine, authentic, and honest people. He's a super nice guy, and this whole thing is blowing his mind. He's made several videos on this topic, and each video blows up and then has people in the comments claiming they've seen this commercial, and some of them even had it recorded on their DVRs. Remember the DVRs? So even weirder, he's continuing to dig. He's now intrigued, all of us are, and look what someone sent him. Someone asked ChatGPT about this commercial, and this was the response. According to ChatGPT, this is a very popular Super Bowl commercial that stands the test of time. So what the hell is going on? Could it be A, that Chris is a master manifester who created a timeline where he won the $1 million contest, and his commercial aired on the Super Bowl and continued to air for years, and then for whatever reason he was knocked out of this timeline and into our timeline? Or is it a new Mandela effect? Or what do you think? 'Cause my mind is blown.
I kind of have potentially a theory on this one. I remember seeing this commercial before as well, but where I think I saw it was about a decade ago on YouTube in a compilation video where someone had taken several creator-made Doritos commercials that were made for some Doritos contest, and they had put them all together so that you could sit and watch all of them back to back. And I remember when this contest was going on, watching these commercials that were made by regular people. That was a big thing. You could literally go to work and ask someone, did you see that one commercial that someone made for Doritos? And 50% of the time, they would have seen it. Everyone was seeking this out. So it's possible, and I'm not saying that this is definitive, but this is just my idea. I think it's possible that this is a collective mismemory, that a lot of people remember watching these on YouTube and they're just assuming that they saw it in the middle of the Super Bowl. What do you all think? Do you remember seeing this ad? Do you remember if you saw it on TV or if you saw it on YouTube?
Every photo of the sun comes through and it looks like this. It comes in close, it spreads out. Where's that other great one? You know what I'm saying? It moves like that. Just like that. So, this is something anyone can prove. I don't need fancy speech. I have a small light here. When your light source is far away, shadows are straight. When a light source, or if a light source is big, you can imagine that if I had a big light source, the bigger my light source is, this would definitely be straight. The light would come straight through. However, when your small light source gets closer and closer and closer and closer, eventually, when it's seriously close, if you look at that shadow pattern is the same as that. It's the exact same. You have all seen this with your own eyes. You know this is a fact of nature. That is how the sun looks when it comes through the clouds. This is probably CG, but that is what the sun looks like when it comes through the clouds. It does not come through straight. It always comes down and it splits out. That means the sun isn't far away, because the further away I get, the straighter those shadows get. It's not until I get really close that the shadows flare out. And that is what you see with your own eyes. Trust your own eyes. Remember, who taught you everything? The Ashkenazi Jews, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds. Teach them everything they don't need to know and teach them everything about nothing. And they did it. Become the greatest version of yourself and trust in your own eyes.
I don't see it. Of course, it took me a while myself to get on board with the idea of a flat earth and a not so distant sun and moon. But now, having the understanding that I currently have about how our system functions, I don't see how someone can at least look at something like this knowing what their own eyes detect and not at least question what's going on. I don't know how far away the sun actually is, but I know that someone with a Nikon P1000 can zoom right into the sunspots on it. I know it can't be that far away, otherwise they wouldn't be able to do that. And I know it's not some big ball of fire that's spinning, because those sunspots always appear in the exact same location. So I can't sit here and say I know definitively what's going on, but I can definitively say that what they're telling us is going on is all bull.
Something showed up in this person's yard that was not there the day before, and you are not going to believe it. Like, there is no, I just watch it. Let me know what you think, please.
Hello. I think I found something really weird. Alright. Live in Burnsville, Minnesota. It's like a little suburb south of the cities. In a little townhome in a neighborhood not far from an interstate. Sorry. And we recently had some like storms or whatever. Not really anything crazy. It's normal for us to get like a lot of rain or whatever. And so yeah, I'm like walking around my yard and cleaning up the property because there's always like fallen branches and because there's just so many, trees here. And look what I found. Okay, so I share the house is split here and they have their own backyard, crazy overgrown by the way, and then I have my yard, and I'm like, oh, okay, something fell, let me go and like move it, cut it up or whatever. So I go to move it and look at this. It's the fence is growing into the tree. Here's the thing, that's not the bottom of the tree. There's no roots, right? Like, whatever. Maybe it's loose topsoil and all the roots have, were brittle. I don't know, and it died and then fell in the wind. But even if I lift it up like this to try and like stand it back up, that's like completely deforming the fence. I don't know. It's just crazy. That this is the way that it is. I mean, we got a bunch of like foliage and around or whatever, but what the how is this grown through the fence? It honestly looks like it was like being launched through the fence and then like stopped midway or something. What the it's crazy.
I guess an easy explanation for this would be that someone drilled holes into that branch and cut the fence, slid the branch into the fence, and then carefully placed all of the wires into the holes. But when you pause this and zoom in on it and really look at it, it doesn't look like that's what's going on here. It looks like someone stuck this thing into the fence and then the branch continued to grow and grew around the fence. And you would think that if someone had simply drilled holes in it with a drill and then cut the wire on the fence and placed it into the holes, you would think that there would be some sort of scuff marks or something where they were using the drill on the branch. But look at the openings on the holes. They don't look like you would expect them to look if someone was just sticking a drill bit through it. It's all curved and rounded out as if it naturally formed around those wires. And in all honesty, that probably is what's going on here. Probably somebody put this thing together just to get some views on the internet, and they were just really, really careful in how they did it. But it is super convincing. It does not look like that's what's going on. I can do some pretty detailed work whenever I have the right motivation, and that is not something that I could pull off. But that doesn't mean that someone else who's better at this stuff than me couldn't pull it off. What do you all think is the explanation here?
What is actually happening when you post pictures of your kids online is weird, but one mom not only witnessed that it was happening to her, she's now proving that it did. As someone who posts like mom content, she would post videos with her kids, started noticing a sharp incline in the male audience versus the female. You're thinking, oh, maybe they're just pushing her content to men. No, she's a primarily female viewership. But then she started posting stuff without any kids in it. Her no kids content got significantly less male viewership. In fact, she was back to her normal 80% female viewers. Halloween video of her with her family, including her kids, over 70% men viewing it. About just like a simple picture of just her and her husband. 80% women. Oh, videos of just her. 8% men. Videos of her with her kid, almost 70% men. The only difference in her videos or pictures were that the ones that had her children in it were getting pushed to a male audience versus the stuff where it was just her and her friends, just her and her husband, 80% women. Again, not a celebrity, just a regular woman who is sharing some of her life online, like all of her special moments. So now she's realizing it may not be safe at all to share her children. This is a huge wake-up call to all of us. I've never looked at my analytics, broken it down. Women who have millions of followers sharing their daily lives with their kids, she's even wondering how many of those are just creepy men who are just there to look at her kids.
I've wondered this for a long time, and First of all, this is absolutely disgusting. These social media platforms should be completely ashamed of themselves, because I can't rationalize even how, if this were simply driven by profits, how this would make sense. I would be interested to know what sort of ads they're running on this content when they're pushing it to a male audience who is clearly there for really disgusting reasons. But if the main reason that her viewership is roughly 70% men when she's posting videos of her children, if the main reason for that is because the algorithm is presenting that content mainly to men, the only reason the algorithm is designed to function that way is because they're trying to promote this idea. They're trying to once again normalize something that should be 100% socially unacceptable across the board. And clearly, it's impacting some people. But when you see stuff like this, when you see how just simply the algorithm that these social media platforms use to push the content that they want pushed, seeing something like we saw earlier with these kids and even grown adults running around dressed as animals starts to make a lot more sense. People are becoming obsessed with these horrible ideas because they think that it's normal, because they're constantly fed content telling them that it is.
I saved this because it reminded me of something. In America, we have this tradition where natives are portrayed to hold up their hand and they say, how? I don't know, something racist, I guess. But I've discovered that they held up their hand for a very specific reason. And it wasn't some silly depiction from our Hollywood. It was actually a result of them wanting to see whether or not you had 6 fingers. We have all kinds of these stories in America of these giants, and, you know, anytime the giant bones are found, the Smithsonian shows up and carts it off, and you know, that's probably true. And the more that I look into this prehistoric stuff that's related to the sandcastle culture that I've discovered, and the cultures that are associated with the later tech eras, namely like the second tech era, there's a lot of Nephilim stuff going on. And it seems that the Nephilim very much made it for a long time. You know, even after the Younger Dryas cataclysm, they seem to be present. And it appears the early natives in America had to deal with these guys. And so them holding up one hand and saying, how? They probably didn't say how. I don't know. But them doing that was essentially derived from the traditions of wanting to know whether or not you're an enemy. And I don't mean to be getting too deep into the conspiracy spaces, because I mean, try to stay as neutral as possible, but I can't help but get into this prehistoric stuff and discover you can't avoid this topic. And the things that stand out to me are these Nephilim stories from early America. And there's one that I can't find, and if anybody knows of what I'm describing, please, send me the link. But there's a interview of a groundskeeper. This individual worked on the grounds of Jekyll Island, where the Federal Reserve was created. And he told a story where Rockefeller built the clubhouse or whatever structure over this site that was alleged to be a sacrificial site of the former giants that had lived on that specific island. And this groundskeeper described this long story of Rockefeller and all this back and forth about the giants. And you really can't get into early American history or even prehistoric world history without talking about the alleged existence of the Nephilim.
I think this is actually a brilliant take. I don't know how true it is, and I feel like I've heard this talked about before, but to see these images depicting basically Native Americans with 6 fingers, or people that lived here at the time of the Native Americans who had 6 fingers, and to find out that there are actually a lot of stories, in fact, that talk about this specific thing, feels like it adds quite a bit of validity to it. But it would make sense that there would be a lot of Nephilim or Nephilim offspring, descendants, whatever you want to call them, living here in the United States when it was a much less populated area. It would be easier for them to hide and even thrive. And then from what we're told, there was for a very long time no form of government or law enforcement here. They could literally do what they wanted without being questioned. It would make perfect sense that they would inhabit this land. But I always assumed that the reason that the natives did this was because they were just showing, I'm unarmed, I'm a friend. But it very well could be that they're just simply trying to show each other when they approach that they've only got 5 fingers and therefore they can be trusted. But what do y'all think about this idea? I personally think it's very fascinating. And while there's really no way to find out for sure, I think it makes a lot of sense, and it makes a lot of things make sense. But guys and gals, I'm going to go ahead and end the video right there. I hope you enjoyed these clips we watched together today. I apologize for the poor audio if you can hear it raining in the background. There's a pretty severe storm going on right now. But God willing, I will have a video out for you guys tomorrow on Sunday as well. I hope that you come back to join me. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and don't forget to drop your theories and your comments in the comment section down below. But guys and gals, I hope everyone has a great, safe, fantastic rest of your day, and I will see you all in the next one.